Good evening, party members, affiliates and comrades, and welcome to this week's live broadcast by the Workers' Party of Great Britain. There will be an opportunity to contribute to the discussion later on, but first I'd like to present to you our main speaker, the absolute dynamo and our party leader, Mr. George Galloway.
Thank you very much, Tess, and it's a joy to be introduced by you for the first time. No disrespect to Rob, of course. We have very high hopes for both of you, but it's good to pass the microphone around. And so welcome to this new role. I have quite a bit of good news to impart this evening to the party membership and also to the public who are watching this now or will watch it later, as many thousands of people continue to do. And the first is, hallelujah, we, the Workers' Party of Britain, have our first town councillor. He is Councillor James Ball, town councillor in Rhyl in Wales, and he becomes, rather historic actually, the very first ever Workers' Party councillor. He has informed the council that he now sits as the councillor for his ward as a representative of the Workers' Party of Britain. And in that vein, I can announce, many of you already know it, that our comrade Paul Burrows is the candidate duly nominated. Quite a bit of helter-skelter involved with my young colleague James having to motor quite far and fast to get the nomination in. But Paul Burrows is duly nominated as a Workers' Party candidate in the by-election in Helensburgh and Lomond South. Now, for those of you who don't know that part of the world, it is particularly beautiful, stunningly beautiful, maybe the most beautiful constituency in the whole country. I myself tried to be the Member of Parliament for that area in 1987. I was defeated by a man who went on to make not that much of a mark as the Labour candidate, though he now sits in the House of Lords. That's, of course, a subject I'm going to return to. But Paul is a local man, a key worker in the area who is well known and respected there. So if you are anywhere near Helensburgh and Loch Lomond South, then please do what you can to help Paul get a respectable start to our electoral fortunes. The constituency is very far from easy. It is not the red Clydeside by any means, but we are ready to fight anywhere and everywhere with our unique package of policies and attitudes, which we think are increasingly attractive to ordinary people, working people and their families, the length and breadth of this country. And just to prove it, we're standing in the idyll of Helensburgh, which is a very, very beautiful town, and Lomond South. Paul Burrows, congratulations on your nominations, and we'll do everything that we can in these very difficult times to help with your campaign. I say campaign, but that leads me neatly on to one of the main things I want to talk about this evening. It is illegal to campaign in these elections. You can pay people to deliver your literature, but you may not deliver it yourself. You may not have your friends, family, party members, activists campaign in any way. Soapboxes, illegal. Campaign buses, illegal. Canvassing, illegal. Leafleting, illegal unless you hire at the very great cost. I'll give you in a minute the kind of costs associated with paid delivery. Then you may not campaign at all. And this is intolerable. you either have to postpone these elections or you have to lift these restrictions. And I'm appealing to the Electoral Commission. I have been doing so all day with that demand. We want elections, but you have to lift the restrictions on the candidates and their parties who are fighting these elections. And if that's important in Helensburgh, it's even more important across Scotland in the elections in May for the Scottish Parliament at Holyrood, where incidentally at least 3 Workers' Party of Britain members have now been adopted as candidates for the Alliance for Unity, which we have played a leading role, the leading role in establishing, and which is now a very significant political feature on the political landscape in Scotland. It has made the political weather with our 2 big ideas, and our candidates, Paul Burrows, Daoud Islam, and Ian Mulholland, are now part of a team which will be a serious threat, or would be a serious threat to the other parties if we had a proper election. Now, I'm standing as the lead candidate in South Scotland, where I live, which takes in Ayrshire, Dumfries and Galloway, the Borders, East Lothian, Clydesdale. It's a very substantial piece of countryside with a lot of people living there. And I want to deliver a mail shot in the next couple of weeks to all of the electors there, all of the households there, at least. If it was all of the electors, these numbers would be even greater. But the cost of delivery, never mind printing, the cost of delivery is £20,000 to deliver 1 leaflet to each house in the constituency. Now, in the ordinary course of events, we would have teams of people, many volunteers, gagging to be allowed to do so, delivering at least a substantial part of that number of leaflets. But they are not legally allowed to do so. I bought a soapbox. You know, I like these kind of things. I'm old-fashioned. But the soapbox is still in its paper because I'm not allowed to take it out, even to stand in a field. And there are many fields. Even to stand in a car park, I'm not allowed to do so. My loudspeaking equipment lies unused. I'm not allowed to knock on anyone's door, approach anyone in the street, give out leaflets, or even deliver leaflets door to door. All this while Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland and the leader of the governing party with a minority government in coalition with the so-called Scottish Green Party, has a live broadcast on BBC every single weekday, Monday to Friday, sometimes also at weekends, and has done for an entire year. This is farcical. What kind of an election is that? That the governing party is live on state television every day, but the opposition parties are not even allowed to deliver leaflets door to door. And again, I have raised with the Electoral Commission, either you have to postpone these elections on the principle that if it's not safe to campaign, it cannot be safe to vote, and it is a threat to the health of our democracy to have a farcical election such as that. So either you postpone the elections or you lift the restrictions so that the opposition parties can properly participate. I was an election observer in many countries for the British Parliament, all around the world, in Mozambique, in Pakistan, in South Africa, in Cambodia, and so on. And I'll tell you this, as an election observer, if we had discovered that the opposition parties were not allowed to campaign at all in those elections, but the governing party was commanding the airwaves every day on live television, we would have caught the first plane home, having declared the whole thing an absolute farce. And yet that is the situation that we are now facing in Scotland today. So the issues of elections are very much a part of the Workers' Party's reason for being. Why? Because the workers in Britain no longer have a party they can vote for. Peter Mandelson once said to Peter Hain, according to Hain's autobiography, when Hain raised the need to throw a bone or two to the working class in the election manifestos of the Tony Blair-led Labour Party of the time, Mandelson famously opined, "You don't have to worry about the working class, Peter. They've got nowhere else to go." Well, the Workers' Party is here to say the workers do have somewhere else to go, and that somewhere is us. And therefore, in elections, we will be putting forward common sense socialism, shorn of all the lunatic Trotskyite and ultra-liberal and identitarian identity politics trash that has besmirched the name of socialism, besmirched the name of the left, alienated vast sections of the working class in Britain, particularly in the north, but also in Wales and in Scotland and in many other parts of the south, who want common sense socialism, but don't want to have to believe that a man can become a woman merely by declaring themselves to be. Don't want identity politics of any kind pushed down their throat and made to feel like a primitive if they don't use the right pronouns or the right nomenclature or know how many letters are in the latest incarnation of LGBTQ plus or whatever it is now. That's not socialism. That's liberalism. That's ultra-left Trotskyism. That has nothing to do with the common sense socialism that we are offering to the working people of Britain. And I think our electoral fortunes over the course of time are healthy, are going to be healthy because Labour has simply abandoned them. Now, on the subject of Peter Mandelson, it's only a little over a year, if it even is a year. I think it's not even a year since Sir Keith Starmer promised that he would continue the broad policy outlook of the Corbyn leadership of the Labour Party. Not only has he now abandoned all of that, not only with all our criticisms of Corbyn's platform, by the way, particularly on the Brexit issue, but not only has he abandoned that, not only has he sacked from the front bench virtually all, if not all, of Corbyn's lieutenants and members of Corbyn's shadow cabinet, he's brought back Peter Mandelson, the man who was twice sacked from the British cabinet of Tony Blair for his recklessly inappropriate behavior, was sacked twice by Blair, brought back time after time by the Blair-Brown leadership of the time, and must have thought, after Miliband got in, succeeded by Corbyn, that his days at the top table in Labour were over. But far from over, He's now running the show. Things are so bad for Keith Starmer, who we were told would be 20 points ahead before we knew that Boris Johnson was going to preside over the deaths of well over 100,000 of our people in a series of calamities, incompetence and corruption. He's not 20 points ahead. It won't be long before he's 20 points behind. He is falling further and further behind Boris Johnson, particularly amongst working class voters. So the woodpecker that is knocking on the head of Keith Starmer is now again Lord Peter Mandelson. Now I say to you, I'm looking you right in the eye. If you're watching this and you're still a member of the Labour Party, what are you doing? How can you possibly stay in a party led by Keith Starmer and Peter Mandelson? This is beyond the pale, surely. This is an important crossing of the Rubicon. So I reissue my call to you and others like you, socialists in the Labour Party, to finally abandon this sinking vehicle, which is sinking in itself as a political organization, but is sunk as a potential vessel to take us to the kind of socialist Britain that we want to see and that I and you have been fighting for, in some cases, all of our lives. People are joining the Workers' Party from Labour at a considerable rate now. And I appeal to you to join them, because it's going nowhere that you want to go. It's not a voyage that you want to be on. And indeed, you won't be welcome on the voyage. Many people are already suspended and expelled. And you, if you're a socialist in the Labour Party, if you supported Corbyn, you will not be long allowed to travel on that voyage. And why would you want to anyway? Why would you want to be like Lisa Nandy? Why would you want to be like Keith Starmer? Why would you want to be like Peter Mandelson? How can you wake up in the morning and think that being in the same party that Peter Mandelson is now in co-charge of is a good idea, is a good use of your time? So please, abandon it. I know it's painful. I tried to stay in the Labour Party in 2003 when I was expelled, and I know the wrench that it represents, and I grieved over it for quite some time. But there comes a time when you have to say it is intellectually and morally dishonest and futile to continue to give your time, your money, your effort to a party such as they now indisputably are. I mentioned Lisa Nandy. I see that she is demanding that the British government take a tougher line with Russia. I don't know quite who or what these people imagine Britain to be. We have left the European Union with 27 countries mad at us. The MAGA president of the United States has been replaced by Irish Joe Biden, no great friend of Britain. And what are we doing in this new world? We are picking fights with anybody else that we can find. We're picking fights with China. We're picking fights with Russia. And Labour is egging the government on to be more hostile to China and Russia than the Tories want to be. That's the kind of Labour Party we have. And the approximate cause of Lisa Nande's latest spasm is the Navalny case. Now, I'm used to the double standards in geopolitics, of course, and I've been across this course many times over many years. But these people, including their house journal, The Guardian, are deliberately portraying, painting this man Navalny as somehow a Guardianista. He is what Putin called today a caveman nationalist. He called Russia's Asian citizens cockroaches and demanded that they be driven from Russia's borders back to the Caucasus that they may have left 100 years ago. Their grandparents, great-grandparents may have left 100 years ago. Anyone who's been in Russia, even since the Soviet times, knows that in Moscow and in Leningrad and the big cities, there are substantial populations, Muslim populations mainly, that Navalny considers to be subhumans. He was a part of the white supremacist, skinhead, Nazi, nasty fringe in Russian politics. Putin is right to call him a caveman nationalist, right as he did today, Putin. Denounce slogans like Navalny's slogan, Russia for the Russians. This is a nativist, quasi-fascistic, ultra-Russian nationalist. You wouldn't think Guardian readers at the breakfast table would automatically take to him, that the BBC, with its bloated headquarters in Moscow, would naturally take to. It's not that they don't know these things. The videos are on YouTube. You can watch them anytime. You can see his lips moving and see the things that he is saying. So we are going to pick a fight with Russia. We're going to further wreck our relations with Russia over Navalny, who makes Nick Griffin and Tommy Robinson look like liberals. This is desperate stuff. And it's not, you see, if these people are confused, I'd understand it, but Lisa Nandy is not confused. Trust me, the researchers in the House of Commons Library are the best librarians in the whole country. You can ask them, as she will do daily, you can ask them for anything and they will very quickly produce it. So they are knowingly pretending to people that Navalny is, first of all, an important political player in Russia, when in fact he polls 3% of the vote, but that he is someone worth championing as a Spartacus. Now, he ain't no Spartacus for me, and he wouldn't be for you or anyone else if they just looked beyond the fake news flurry that has been got up. And it's one after another. It's Huawei, it's the Muslims in China, it's Tibet, it's Taiwan, it's the Falun Gong, it's Navalny, it's, you know, they continue to describe Navalny as the opposition leader. The leader of the opposition in the Russian parliament is the Communist Party leader. The communists are the second party in Russia. And there are 10 parties ahead of Navalny. He's not an opposition leader. He is a caveman Russian nationalist. And if Britain is really ready to further wreck its international relations for Navalny, this shows the gross irresponsibility of the political leadership that we have. And they will discover that President Biden will probably repair his relations with Russia, probably repair his relations with China. And we will be left yapping on the sidelines, having tried to play the British bulldog against countries far richer and far more powerful than ourselves. The Workers' Party's foreign policy is clear. We bear automatic enmity to no one, nor automatic love for any regime or any other country. The Workers' Party demands a foreign policy that is pursuant to the interests of the British people, its trade, its security, its cultural relations, and we will automatically unfriend no one if they take action against us and against our interests, if they are guilty of egregious crimes against other people, then of course that will influence the warmth of our relationship with them. But there is no automaticity about that. We don't depart from the principle that China and Russia and Venezuela and Cuba and many others are our enemies. They are not. We want to have good relations with the rest of the world. And we'll defend Britain's interests. We'll defend Britain with a properly funded, resourced, and paid armed forces if it came to that. But we seek a role for Britain in the world as something better than we have had for a very, very long time. Sorry, I've gone on a bit. Tess, thanks very much for listening to me.
Thank you, George. It's never hard listening to you, and you're on fire tonight. It's fantastic. I really want to see you on your soapbox. And what I love about what you're saying here is I was in Labour, and I left, as you know, more than a year ago to come after you. And with this Blairites return, it just feels like everyone's resolute, you know, as resolute as the band on the Titanic, just playing their violins and going down. And so I hope that people are listening, and I hope that they see. I won't talk anymore because we've got a massive queue of people. First up, we've got Kieran, who's waited weeks to talk to you about Navalny, I believe. So Kieran, if you're there,
that's quite timely. Thanks, Kieran.
Are you there, Kieran? There you are.
Can you hear me, George?
Yes, very clear, Kieran. Welcome.
Thank you, George, and also to Tess. As a socialist party, as the only true socialist party in this country, how can we deadhead the liberal media's proclivity to insist that Navalny is the opposition? As you eruditely said, we all know who the real opposition is in Russia. And what can we do to bolster that fact?
Well, truth is the antidote. Of course, we don't have the means yet to disseminate the truth as widely as we need to, and as, of course, we'd like to. But we're not without soapboxes. This is one. I spoke about Navalny on the Mother of All talk shows, which by the end of this week will have been seen by the best part of 750,000 people. And they speak to other people and they pass the truth around. Our platform, our soapbox on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, and so on. Though we do need to do a bit better on Facebook, I think. These are all places where we can tell the truth. It's not that we're lying, so the truth will be persuasive. The truth about Navalny is that he is not the opposition leader. He's a minor league irritant in the Russian political system. And it's not that he is a liberal or a progressive. It is that he is a proto-fascist. He is not someone that any respectable person would want to be associated with. And his nearest comparators in Britain, which I have given already, make that clear. He is a street urchin like Tommy Robinson, and he should be treated like that. He has rights in Russia. He is in prison for fraud. It's not a long sentence. He'll be out in 18 months. It's not true that if Russia wanted to kill Navalny, they could very easily have killed him, and not needing the exotic pot plant of Novichok to do it either. The idea that Russia couldn't just have killed Navalny in the normal way is patently ridiculous. Nobody's trying to kill Navalny. He's not a threat to the government in Moscow, and the actual opposition in Moscow is not Navalny, but the Communist Party.
Awesome. Thanks, George. And thanks, Kieran. Great question. I think next we're going to go to Sophia. Are you there, Sophia? Can you unmute yourself?
Hi, George.
Hi, Sophia.
Tess.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you too. I just wanted to talk a bit about internationalism and how the media has done a bang-up job, I guess, over the years of confusing people over what it really stands for. And we've had NATO and the European Union push down our throats. And for people that don't know how it was formed and why, it can seem appealing, you know, countries working together for a greater good. Essentially, they're parasites. They are there to destabilize and colonize. And essentially, they support every right-wing coup, drop bombs, support illegal wars. The list goes on. Our meeting on Yemen was absolutely fantastic and a real eye-opener. I think everyone should watch that. And in stark contrast, we have Cuba. Cuba in a pandemic, under sanctions, sending their doctors and nurses across the world in solidarity. So this is really important. It's number one on our 10-point program on our website, and you can check that out. But an end to imperialist wars and financial domination is number one. Everything else depends on that, because without the freedom of all workers worldwide and the liberation and their own independence, we can't be free. Everything's interlinked. And so uniting the left and right, I used to be in Labour. Like you say, the great thing about the Workers' Party, we've had people from all different walks of life, right and left. You're quite socially conservative. I'm sure there's things we disagree on, but that is being a grown-up. That's not the kind of liberal stagnation that I've been in parties before, where you have to agree on everything or otherwise it's not progress. No, there's going to be things you disagree on, but can you get behind the 10-point program? Yes. And it's important to understand, again, there's no freedom without an end to the imperialist wars. Bring our troops back. And talking to someone on the street, you may not, it's not a subject. Imperialism doesn't mean a lot to people, but if you say, you know, where did you get that hoodie from? You know, you bought that, it was on the cheap. Some kid in India is working 12-hour days as a slave to make that hoodie that's going to last you a couple of washes. And you keep buying these things and nothing ever really fills you up. And whether you're right or left, whatever your political alignment is, you're going to say, no, I don't like it. And you know what? I don't have a job. And it'll be really nice if I could make something, and I know it would last longer, and I know the environmental impact would be lower. And it's okay for the people that can afford it. They can go and buy homemade products, and they feel good, and they make you smile every time you use them. And you can go to farmers markets and buy the best food, and that tastes good. And all of that is related. So I say this because at the moment we're going to face a huge recession after the pandemic. We've got a decade, they're saying, before climate catastrophe. So, and already you've got the fingers pointing to people coming over on the dinghies, and it's making sure that reaching out to people that feel a bit alienated, because it's fine to be patriotic. I'm proud of our arts, our culture, our everything, engineering, great minds, but we have to make a distinction between us as a working class, proud of our history, proud of where we can go, but make the distinction between the ruling class who are occupying other countries, dropping bombs, and just say, look, we are standing in solidarity with you workers. We are not on their side. This is us. We're proud of who we are and what we do. That you can be patriotic. And yeah, I think where I'm going with this is on the global stage, I don't know how you feel about what we could be in terms of like our British characteristics and strengths, because of course we've had these previous alliances. How do you think going forward as a socialist nation, what alliances do you think we can form? And I know you've mentioned before like shipbuilding and bringing industry back home, because we've become a bit of a service nation as such. So just to touch on that, really, to go on your point on internationalism.
Well, thanks. It's quite a broad question, so I won't have time to focus on every part of what you said, all of which deserves an answer, all of which was extremely interesting. So let me, as it were, zero in on this point. No party can prosper in a country where the people of that country believe that you hate them. And I think Labour is now in that position, that very substantial numbers of people in Britain think that Labour hates them, hates the way they live, hates the way they think, hates the values that they hold, family values, for example. Or, as I highlighted this week, a Labour shadow cabinet member, not some activist Trotskyite in the Rotherham CLP, an MP, a member of the shadow cabinet, in writing, proposed that we drop the appellation Mr., Miss, Ms., Mrs. We drop them. And we substitute MX and MY. Now, this kind of lunacy is laughed at by the vast majority of the British people, and it further entrenches in the minds of working class people that Labour has nothing to do with them, that it's the politics of student unions, the politics of a very tiny section of the British population, which is obsessed with these identity politics issues and so on. So a party which doesn't, and sounds like it doesn't, actually like the country it's in, like the people that's in it, a party which acts like, to paraphrase and mischaracterize the words of Brecht, the party has lost confidence in the people and has decided to elect a new one. That's the kind of place where not just Labour, but most of the rest of the so-called left in Britain currently are. They don't like the way most of us live our lives. They don't like that we chose Brexit. They don't like that we would prefer to keep Britain together rather than have it split apart. They don't like that we don't like the European Union. They don't like the fact that we want to be an independent country. We're not in that game. It's our duty as people living in Britain, whether we were born here or not. If we're living in Britain, we're British workers. And it's our job to make a better Britain. We love our country. We just think it could be better. It could be better for the people that are living in it. And it could play a better role in the world than the one currently being played. That's our position. I believe that's a position easily transmittable to the mass of the people, who are, as you pointed out in your example, perfectly open to the argument that some of what we enjoy at the considerable expense of poorer people than us in poorer parts of the world than ours. And that you have to, if you have a conscience, if you have a sense of morality, you have to have in mind that the price on the label is not the whole price, that the price paid by exploited workers, by child labor, and so on, these are all issues. The best way to solve them is to make things ourselves. And you alluded to that. We have a vision of a manufacturing Britain where the state is playing an important role, in some cases the decisive role, in rebuilding our manufacturing and industrial capacity, in which the workers will all be unionized and in which the British national interest will be paramount. And then, if we can build such a Britain, we'll have a better Britain, a richer Britain, where the people in it are richer and will be able to live better lives. And any government that would do that would automatically be a government keen to play a better role in the world. It's a long time before we're running Britain, but we are running the Workers' Party. And in the Workers' Party, we stand in absolute solidarity with people like us everywhere in the world. And we stand in absolute opposition to people who are harming people like us everywhere in the world. And our solidarity at this moment in time is not worth a great deal to them because we are small. But one day we'll be larger. And the larger and more powerful and influential we are, the more we'll be able to be in effective solidarity with them. Meanwhile, we say that if we have to choose between NATO and Cuba, that's a no-brainer, as young people like you say. We're against NATO. We're for the abolition of NATO. We're the only party on the left in Britain that is for the abolition of NATO. Not because we're pacifists. We are very far from pacifists. We're the only party on the left in Britain that does this also. We honor, daily we honor the sacrifices made by our armed forces in the defense of the country and ultimately in the defeat of Hitler fascism in the anti-fascist war of 1939 to 45. We are the only people that talk to veterans. We're the only people on the left that have got a substantial number of military veterans in our ranks. Soldiers have nothing to fear from us. On the contrary, we will A, make sure they're far better looked after when they are servicemen and women, after they've been servicemen and women, and we won't send them on a pack of lies to invade other people's countries. I got the coronavirus vaccination last Friday. All of the people involved in it were soldiers. They were, by the way, all English soldiers in Scotland. And the people loved them. And they loved the people. And that's the proper role for armed forces, to defend our own people, to help in civil emergencies like this one, to fight and defend us if anyone sought to harm us, terrorists or any state or non-state actor. We are not pacifists, but we aren't prepared to lie to our armed forces that NATO, under US domination, can produce anything good. It never has, even in its own North Atlantic Treaty Organization area. They say they kept the peace. Tell that to the people of Yugoslavia. Tell that to the people of Yugoslavia. Thanks very much, Sophia.
Thanks, George. Excellent response to an excellent contribution, as usual, from Sophia. A friend of mine who believes, she saw the 10-point program of the Workers' Party and she loved it and believed in it. And she said that when she saw the symbol for the Workers' Party, the red, white and blue RAF kind of symbol, that she thought immediately that we were a right-wing party, even though she'd read the 10-point program by that point. And I think it's kind of a real shame that the left have been trained to feel that they shouldn't be proud of their country. What other country is there that is so ashamed to be from where they're from? That's
none. There's none. And I alluded to this, Tess, last week. If the French Communist Party, in the height of its power, in the form of Georges Marchais, the legendary General Secretary, can talk about socialism in the colors of France, can give speeches with the French national flag beside him. France was an imperialist country too, just like Britain, just like many others. That doesn't mean you hate the flag. It might not be the flag that we, if we were starting from scratch, would choose, might not be. But it's our country's flag. And substantial numbers of people in our country whose support we want, like the flag, consider that it is their flag. It is our flag. We live in a state. We're seeking to take over that state. How can we take it over? Only by the democratic support of the people of that state. So again, it's a no-brainer. If you want to persuade the people of a state to support you and put you into power, you better not look and sound like you actually hate the state, the country, the flag, and ultimately the people in the country you're trying to win power in.
spot on every time. Okay, right. I think now we're hearing from our brave and illustrious first ever Workers' Electoral Party candidate from Helensburgh, Paul Burrows. Are you there, Paul? Are you there, lad? Can you unmute yourself? Is he there, Rob?
I hope he's not out electioneering, because that's illegal.
He's gone. He's seen the iceberg.
Is that me?
Have we got him?
I was having trouble unmuting there.
Awesome. Nice one.
Thanks, Tess. Thanks for doing a great job tonight. And I just wanted to come in really and just thank all the support and the party for giving me this opportunity. I loved everything that's been said so far, and it's the reason I joined the party. I joined the party at the very beginning because I didn't have a home. The Labour Party has become defunct for what it was to support and encourage the working people and be there. And I believe that this party is the way forward. And I hope that, like I said, that I can get at that the campaign's going to be troublesome, obviously, like George mentioned, with the restrictions at the moment, but I really hope that I can put a good show on for the party. I'd just like to thank everyone in the party for their support, and to George for founding the party in the first place, because I mean, there's so many points that people talk about on the party, and I always felt I couldn't go into politics because of the way I speak, and I was made to feel out of place in the Labour Party when I was a member, because I wasn't well educated, or because I'm a working class man and I want to represent working class people in this country. So just want to thank George and all the party members. Thanks a lot.
Bravo, Paul. That was short and incredibly sweet. I'm quite moved by it. When I said you were a local man, I mean you live locally and you've worked locally, and for many years. The fact that you don't have the same accent as me, but live in the same country as me, and have the same politics as me, is precisely why we are determined to keep this country together. Because the idea that you and me should be foreigners to each other, aliens, that the people of Newcastle and Sunderland and Liverpool and Manchester and Birmingham and Coventry, the idea that somehow they are foreigners to us, and that we have more in common with Slovenia and Slovakia than with them, is patently absurd, extremely divisive, and could only set the workers' cause back. You're a bus driver. You've got more in common with a bus driver in the north of England than you do with a laird in the north of Scotland. And I live closer to Carlisle than I do to Edinburgh, and so on. We could go on. We are determined to offer a socialist alternative in Britain, which keeps Britain together and keeps Britain an independent country. That's why we fought, many of us, for Brexit, and that's why we fight separatism in Scotland today. Many thanks. Good luck to you, Paul. Anything we can do legally, we will do.
Thanks, George. There's so many socialists that want independence, not only in Scotland, but in Wales as well. And it makes you think, well, what happened to Workers of the World Unite, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
You legend, Paul. You're really brave. Go for it, mate. We're all behind you. Everyone here in the chat is all behind you. And any support you need, we'll give it to you. And anyone else who wants to run, give us a shout. Okay, right. Next, I think we're going over to Cecilia, who might be our last speaker tonight because we're kind of running out of time. So over to you, Cecilia, if you can unmute yourself, Dal.
Hi, sorry.
Hi, Cecilia.
Hello, good evening, George. Good evening,
Hi.
everyone. So yes, as George said earlier, local elections are planned to take place this year all over England. Could be in May, maybe if not, there will be postponed, as George was mentioning, due to the not being able to do proper campaigning. Hopefully that'll be the case. So we've been getting ready. We set up a few months ago a small hardworking team to do some electoral research. And we've identified more than 60 areas of interest in England where we are aiming to place candidates. And actually we started, as you heard, Paul, we have some other awesome people going to stand in their local areas. So that's really great news. I wanted to share that with you. And also to say that although we are focusing in these particular areas because they are interesting, the conditions are given for us to place candidates there to fight those seats. I also wanted to mention the Scottish parliamentary elections that are also planned to take place in May, and mention the great work that George is doing there with others, with the Alliance for Unity there, and just say that hopefully we'll be able to remove Margaret from there, Margaret Ferrier. Hopefully it's just a matter of time. And keep an eye out. We are aiming to print our electoral material soon. So you'll be able to see our platform for these elections. And if anybody in the Workers' Party would like to stand as a candidate, just give us a shout, drop an email to the party office. I think the email address is info@workerspartybritain.org. So let us know and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Cecilia, I'm really thrilled to hear that report. I had no idea that your work was that advanced. 60 areas is very significant. There are by-elections and elections all the time. And as the example of Paul shows, it's not hard to get involved, especially in this time. You don't even have to go around and get a given number of nominators and seconders and so on. All we needed for Paul to be on the ballot paper was his own declaration that he wanted to stand and get the form into the town hall. And as Paul would be the first to admit, he's not exactly a veteran, experienced candidate in elections. You don't have to be. Actually, most of the councillors that get in local elections are people who had no experience when they were elected. They were elected only on the name of their party, a tendency which is now an historic low in Britain. The possibilities of getting people to vote for somebody different are better now in Britain than they have ever been in the entire history of the last 100 years. So this is our moment. So if you want to stand in your local area or an area with which you have a good and marketable connection, you may not live there now. Maybe you were born there and grew up there, or maybe you work there but live somewhere else. If you can put forward a credible case to people for voting for you, then whether we win or not, the very act of fighting the election will build you, it will build your comrades around you and give them experience in electioneering and campaigning, talking to people, seeking to persuade them. It will help you learn how to climb up lampposts and affix legal election material. It will give you a whole set of skills that you may not currently have. And so elections are a key focus, not the only focus, of course. We are involved in giving solidarity to workers on strike. We're on picket lines. We'll be on protests and demonstrations. We'll be having stalls in high streets and in markets. We'll be doing lots of things, but elections is one of them. And of course, just like passing exams, it's a very good way of charting your progress. It's not a perfect way. It's imperfect given the imbalance of resources and so on. But over time, if you're at the bottom of the Premiership, there's a reason for it. It's that you're the worst team. So you need to be moving up that league. And the more games you play, the more points you'll get and the more you'll move up that league. Trust me on that. I support Manchester United. Thanks very much, Cecilia. Thanks to everyone for watching.
Yep, that's it. Let's flood the elections. Let's fill Parliament with bus drivers and brickies, and all the local councillors can be working class. Fantastic. Thanks so much, George. To everyone who didn't get a chance again to speak tonight, sorry about that. We've got a really massive queue, but we'll work our way through it as the weeks go past. We're getting too popular for our own good, everyone, which is good. That's an awesome thing. So thank you to all our viewers, and old and new. We hope that you'll want to find out more, and that you'll go to our website, workerspartybritain.org. Have a look on there. Join us if you will. And many thanks to George and all our contributors and all our members. We'll see you all at the same time next week. Hope you have a safe and peaceful evening. Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.